I'm Professor Alexa Chu, and I teach at the University of North Carolina School of Law.
I'm Professor Rachel Gurvich, and I also teach at the University of North Carolina School of Law. Today's video is going to focus on reading citations and on writing citations to cases and statutes with the key information that someone can use to know what you're referring to and where to find it. So we're not yet teaching you how to make it Blue Book perfect, but we are teaching you how to get the main information across.
So note that this video is specific to the United States, and it assumes that you know the difference between primary and secondary sources, and that you understand the parallel state and federal systems of government, the three branches of government, what statutes and judicial opinions are, and the three levels of court common in the United States: trial courts, intermediate appellate courts, and high courts, or the court of last resort.
All right, so let's start with reading citations, which is a major lawyering skill. When I say reading citations, I mean making meaning from the citations that appear in practical legal documents without having to look up each cited source, which is time-consuming and therefore bad. And because Alexa mentioned in episode one of the purposes of legal citation is credibility, it's important for legal readers to be able to see what kind of support you have for each of your claims and to know where that support comes from. So let's think about an example. Suppose I'm writing a practical legal document, a memo for a supervising attorney on an issue of North Carolina state law. If I make a claim about the law in my memo, and I support that claim with a citation to a recent North Carolina Supreme Court case or a North Carolina general statute, an experienced legal reader will immediately get a sense of the strength of that claim. But if I make the same claim, and again, remember this is a claim about North Carolina state law, and my citation for that claim is only a federal district court case or a law review article, an experienced legal reader would reach a different conclusion about the available support for my claim. So how do you read legal citations to make meaning from them? The first thing you'll see in a legal citation is whether there's a signal. A signal for our purposes is an italicized word like see or but see that precedes the citation itself, for example, a case name. In the last video, Alexa mentioned the C signal. That's the signal you'll use most, and for R1Ls, it's probably one of the only signals you'll use during your first semester of legal writing. The C tells you that the claim you're making isn't a quote or a paraphrase of something in the legal authority you're citing, but is an inference that is supported by that authority. So the first thing to ask when you're reading citations is, what kind of a source is it? Is it primary or is it secondary? So those are the two basic categories of authorities, and soon this question in particular will be really second nature to you. But for now, the words in the citation can help you make this determination. So if there's a listed human author, for example, Alexa Chu, it's almost certainly a secondary source. If there's a V for verses, it's almost certainly a judicial opinion for your purposes. And if there's a keyword like stat or code or USC, that's a statutory citation and therefore also a primary source like the judicial opinion. If you're using the Complete Legal Writer in your class, so if you're one of Alexa or my students, take a look at Chapter 2 for more information on this. If you're working with a primary source, then the next questions are what government, and specifically what branch of that government, whether it be federal or state, produced the authority. So as we know, the legislative branch, for example, Congress or a state legislature, produces statutes. The executive branch, which includes executive agencies, produces regulations or agency decisions. And the judicial branch of either the state or federal system produces court opinions. On the other hand, if it's a secondary source, the citation can tell you who the author is and often what kind of a source it is. Is it a book? Is it a law review article? Is it a legal encyclopedia or treatise, and so on? And so as you go along reading citations over the course of your law school career, this is all the information you'll learn to gather from each citation that you've read and use it to help assess the strength of the legal claim that precedes it.
Thanks, Rachel. So that was reading citations. So let's switch over to the basics of writing citations. In this episode, I'm going to cover informal citation writing. So as Rachel said at the beginning of the video, these are not the polished citations that you would use in a final document that you might give to a boss or a judge. But writing the informal citations I'm about to talk through will absolutely convey the information that Rachel was just talking about in terms of what legal readers need to read in citations. This kind of informal citation writing is great if you need to write a citation before you've learned how to perfectly format citations, which is pretty common in your first year of law school. Informal citations are also great if you did learn how to perfectly format citations, but you've forgotten, which is pretty common after your first year of law school. And informal citations are also just great if you need to get a citation down on your paper so you can move forward with your writing. For these informal citations, we're going to focus on codified statutes and reported judicial opinions. Those are two authorities that you will have to cite most often. So codified statutes are statutes that are arranged systematically by subject. So that's like animals and businesses and crimes versus by date, like 1980, 1981, 1982, or by number, like 1, 2, 17. One way to think about it is that with codified statutes, there's a book, and if you pick up the book, it will be organized alphabetically by topic, not by a number and not by date. Now for reported judicial opinions. This is an opinion that is in at least one print reporter. A reporter is just the name of a book that has a bunch of judicial opinions in it. Usually they are ordered by date and court. So then we have the other kinds of judicial opinions, which are not in a reporter. And these not in a reporter judicial opinions exist in some form that readers can access, but that form is not a print reporter. So now you're most likely to find a not in a reporter opinion electronically on the internet in some fashion. All right, so how do we cite to codified statutes, informally speaking? All right, here is how. To convey the information that a reader will need, your citation needs to include the following information: jurisdiction, that the authority is a statutory code, and the provision in the code that you're referring to. Remember, these citations might be referring to 20 books on a shelf, and so you want to be real specific. To approximate proper formatting, look at how documents have cited the same code and mimic it. For example, if you see a statute cited in a judicial opinion, mimic the way the citation looks in that opinion. The mimicked cite will convey the information you need to convey, like the stat or code words that Rachel talked about as conveying that the authority is a statute. All right, so how about writing an informal citation to a reported judicial opinion? Again, you want to use the same information that's useful to readers: jurisdiction, date of decision, that the authority is a case, which reporter the case is in, and what page in the book to look at. So like with a statute, mimic what you see elsewhere. The basic format is italicized case names, reporter information, starting page in the reporter, the specific page to look at, the pin site, and a parenthetical with the issuing court and year of decision. For case names, just use the first party on each side of the V. So for individuals, use their last name. If it's something other than an individual, say like a business, just write as much as you want of that first name. If there's more than one party on each side of the V, pretend that there are not. And if there's more than one V, definitely pretend that there aren't. So for the reporter information, you want to give the volume of the reporter that the opinion is in. Think about reporters as books on a shelf. You don't want to tell your reader, hey, go look at all of these books on the shelf, because that's mean. You want to tell them which volume of the reporter to pull off the shelf. Also give the name of the reporter, which tells the reader which of many potential reporters to look in. Reporters are usually abbreviated, and oddly enough, the reporter abbreviations are easier to remember than the full names of the reporters, which people rarely say. So some examples are like SE Second or NC App or FSUP. All right, so then give the page in the reporter where the case begins. Reporters are organized chronologically, which is not very useful unless you know where or when to look. Then give the pin site, which is the page in the reporter where the words you're relying on can be found. If you remember back to the first episode, one of the distinguishing features about legal citation is that it's very precise. We want to give that information about exactly where to look to the reader. And then at the end, include a parenthetical that says the court that issued the opinion and the year it was passed, or sorry, the year it was issued. And that is it. So everything else you might write with respect to citations just makes those citations shorter and quicker to read. So if what you're going for here is, I want a citation right here to convey the source that I'm referring to and help the reader understand it and find it, then these informal citations will absolutely get the job done. Before we wrap up this episode, what if you are writing a citation to a not in a report or judicial opinion? In that situation, use the same approach as for codified statutes. Look at how other people have cited the opinion, find one that looks similar, and just mimic it. But that's the end of this episode. Thanks for watching.